not expect to just fall into this chair, but I did. So there you guys go. Kaspars, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
I know that you don't talk much in public, and this is one of the first public engagements you have in the last couple of years. So everyone can't see you, unfortunately, but everyone that's in the room right now, I'm pretty certain that you guys are in for a massive treat because we have a lot to unpack. So maybe before we dive into your story, the bootstrapping, etc., can you talk us through a little bit more about what is Whimsical about? How did you come up with the idea, and where you guys are at right now?
Yeah, so Whimsical is a tool for teams to collaborate together, especially for teams that are remote and prefer to work asynchronously. And it sort of was born based on my own need running distributed teams, where I was just quite frustrated with state of art of the tools back in like 2016. So yeah, I wanted to build something new, a new business, and that seemed like easiest point to start, like solving my own need.
Yeah, in 2016, as you said, right?
The idea was kind of started to form then, but I got started in 2017.
So that was way before remote became cool and everyone all of a sudden, started using remote tools, right? Before COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it was, some companies was doing it.
Yeah.
And I really kind of appreciated the benefits of being remote, and kind of knew if I were to build a new company, it should definitely be remote. And sort of that was one of the reasons for picking a specific product that became Whimsical. Was also that was kind of the product that was really well suited for remote teams.
We'll talk about the remote teams a little bit in a moment, especially the hate that remote teams are getting nowadays. But maybe let's talk about your your journey as a founder, because you're not the first-time founder, right? You have successfully exited your first venture, CoBook, in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Have you seen, or do you feel that there was very much difference in terms of the market and in terms of you as a founder, the way you run your business then and the way you're running your business right now?
Yeah. I mean, for one, it may seem as CoBook was a success story. In my mind, it was always a failure.
Okay.
Because we kind of, that was the last kind of desperate Hail Mary type of thing of selling the company, because we ran out of money and we haven't figured out a business model, and that maybe it was luck, but we ended up selling company, which was, I guess, the biggest win for me personally. Was that gave me sort of a room to take a breath and be able to start new business. And it's also kind of most directly influenced how I approached Whimsical by being much more intentional about how the business, what it will try to solve, how the team will work, what are our principles, and so on. Because for CoBook, and I'm sure everybody experienced that, trying to start business for the first time, you have this feeling you have no idea what you're doing. And it never goes away. And because of that, I was kind of blindfolded most of the time. I kind of just started doing stuff and arrived at this product that became CoBook, but not because I had some real idea behind it. It just seemed, this might be interesting. Maybe some people will like it. And then some people liked it. And then I figured, we should try to do something more with it. But there was never any kind of clear vision in my mind on what's the story here. So with Whimsical, that was the most important thing, figuring out what the story is, why do I want to work on it, and how will it help other people.
And do you think this is something that maybe first-time founders usually get wrong in terms of having the intention and vision behind it? Because you have to compete with so many other startups and companies. And sometimes you might be lacking the vision, or it just really comes with experience. You have to try and fail and try and fail.
Maybe. I mean, to me personally, it was more about like building business is super hard. Most businesses fail. And if you kind of don't have something kind of deeper that you believe in why you are doing it, then it's like 10 times harder. Because like when things doesn't go as you hoped, and they keep not going, like that happens a lot repeatedly, you need extra source of motivation that like will push you forward. And that's, I guess you can't really appreciate without like actually experiencing that firsthand, but that was like my biggest lesson learned.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit more in detail with relates to Whimsical, because as we were introduced, a lot of times nowadays startups are looking for venture capital, and you guys have bootstrapped initially, and also you have raised a very significant investment, which we'll talk about in a moment. So do you think it does make sense to always try and bootstrap as much as you can, of course, depending on the industry and the area you're in, or it is okay just to go and dive into the VC world right away?
Yeah. I guess
I see some VCs here right
two
now.
sides. Like I have two sides of the coin about it. On one hand, we aren't. I was never purist about it. But like I also recognize that like raising venture capital when you are not very kind of well-known name and you don't have a product and you don't have some like all-star team, it's extremely hard. So because of that, the smart thing to do is always be ready to bootstrap, but like keep that raising investment option open. And we actually did try early on, raising some money, like applying to some accelerators. That thankfully didn't work out. But like I was sort of prepared, okay, we have a year of time, let's try to make it work. And that kind of keeps you extremely focused. Like you need a product that's useful to at least some people, and you need to start making money as quickly as possible. And that is like the ultimate test of any business. Like, are people willing to give you money? Not investors, like actual real customers.
And something that we've just been discussing backstage is that you guys, you have raised 30 million, which is a significant amount, right? And a lot of, I assume, startups and founders right now in the audience, they were asking, so what is that secret sauce? But what you told me that I found really interesting, you said you wish you wouldn't have raised that amount, which might be shocking to a lot of people that are really trying hard.
Yeah. So for one, like if you bootstrap and you are profitable, that is the single easiest way to raise money, because you have optionality. You don't have to raise money, and like I haven't talked to many other companies in similar stage, but like I heard the same thing from few, that it's like you have a long, like there was few months or maybe even a couple years where like I got 10 investor pitches per week, and ultimately, when we did raise the money, then it was just a question of picking like the one which seemed like the best fit and we would enjoy working with. And that worked out. Why I'm kind of, I mean, in retrospect, of course, it's not super valuable advice one way. Well, I don't know what to take away from it, but the reason we are kind of on a fence whether that was the right decision or not is that it was like peak of the market, and I guess on one hand, great, you raised peak of market, got the best terms, and so on. At the same time, like after like there was this crash, which is I don't know if crash, but like definitely slowed down in tech market, and tech companies were our primary customers. So like it became much harder to continue growing. But at the same time, if you raise that like huge round, you have a lot of pressure. Even if like our investors were and still are great, like they never really pressured us, but like you pressure yourself, you kind of feel like, okay, we need to use that money. Like, why did we raise it? And yeah, I mean, now it's still kind of, things are much tougher, like 4 years on or 3 years on now. And it feels like, we could just not kind of had to go through all of that. And we also, because like, I mean, it took personal toll on me because we did try to scale for like almost 2 years. We built this team, like we had 50 people at one point. And then I realized like in this market, it just doesn't make sense to continue burning money. So we had to scale back. And like when you kind of let people go at such a small size, like 50, 30 people, like it's really painful for everyone. And yeah, I had like a episode of burnout, which thankfully kind of ended, but like all that together, like we would still be here today. Whimsical would still be here today, but I would personally be probably a bit happier if we hadn't done. At the same time, we have a lot of money in bank. We are basically not burning any of it. So it gives us freedom, and I shouldn't complain about it. And there's a lot of stuff we still want to build and big plans. So yeah, it's more of like I don't know what the takeaway there is, but.
So if someone, let's say from the audience, comes up to you and asks, okay, so do you think I should try and bootstrap and persevere, for like a year? Or there is an opportunity to get the VC money like right now in this market, what would your advice be?
I mean, if you can bootstrap, that's absolutely preferred option. And if you and getting to like profitability as quickly as possible, I do believe like 9 out of 10 businesses are actually not fit for VC venture funding. It's only kind of like there are very few things, or either something. I mean, there's now a bunch of opportunities in venture AI space, where it's completely kind of like there's a lot of like possibilities that nobody has done before, and that's like what venture capital is perfectly suited for, because most of them will fail. Like it's very hard to invent something new that haven't existed because there's no validation that anybody actually needs or wants it. Versus most of the businesses are actually more of incremental improvements over what exists. And that's in some sense much easier because you kind of already know that people want it. Like it's validated. You just need to figure out like your unique angle, how you can make it better for some part of the market than what exists before. But that then is much harder to scale because like there's much more competition and that's where often like just venture capital it just doesn't fit. Like there could be a lot of like great businesses that doesn't try to scale to hundreds of millions, could comfortably 10 million business. Like for Latvia, that's like still amazing.
And let's talk about scaling, because our session has a very sexy title saying that you guys have grown 250%. And when we were having conversation, it's a bit cheeky, right? Because 250% was during the COVID times. If we would be looking at it today, it would be 70, 80%, which is still significant. But what beyond, the fact that you guys have grown so much and then you realize that probably you need to scale down a little bit, what other lessons have you learned when scaling so rapidly? Also during COVID, everyone went remote, everyone needed tools. Also, some of the tools already existed, so you had a lot of competition from, the big boys. So what were your learnings and outcomes of that? I
don't know if there's something really repeatable, but the way our kind of approach was to, it's almost went back to the, like, what product to build and thinking about from upfront how that product will be distributed, like what's our go-to-market, and actually optimizing for like go-to-market founder fit. Like for instance, like I have no experience like in B2B like sales, and like I have some experience in marketing, and I also felt much more comfortable because it's more quantitative and so on. So we already both, it influenced like decision on what kind of product to build, which was clear it needs to be product-led, which can be driven by marketing. In like sales, when it came in, it was much more not so much selling, but like dealing with inbound interest from larger companies. So I guess one lesson there is be very thoughtful about like what your strengths are as a founder. And you, for example, you can't, if you are not great at sales, I'm very skeptical you'll ever hire a great VP of sales or somebody who will run sales for you. Like that, I don't know. Maybe that happens, but like I haven't seen it. So if that's the case, like don't build like hands-on B2B sales company that needs to be sold to other companies. Build something that can be distributed in some ways you feel comfortable with.
Okay. And I would like to talk a little bit about your team and about the remote work. So you guys were 15 and you had to scale down to 30, and then you know, as your product were remote first to start with before everyone all of a sudden became remote first. Nowadays, 2025, a lot of people, a lot of companies are saying, well, we don't want to be remote first anymore. Everyone has to go back to the office, productivity. That's the best thing that can happen. So there's a lot of hate towards people, companies that do prefer to stay remote first. So how do you foster that culture and, you know, kind of avoid micromanagement within the team? Because 30 people, that's a lot of people to manage.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one lesson is don't follow trends. Like if everybody's going remote, don't do it because everybody's doing it. Do it because you believe in it. Like for us, it was like just deeply held belief that like I wanted to work that way, and my co-founder wanted to work that way, and the first few people we hired wanted to work that way. Plus, I really wanted to have a team that's spread across the globe, like so that we are not American company. We are, I mean, it was said this is Latvian success, but like it's part Latvian company. It's really more like international. And when you kind of held that as belief, and then you kind of design the whole company, the whole culture around it, and then it's relatively easy. I mean, there are still some gotchas like you really need to be able to work with fewer meetings. You need to have people on team you can trust and not stress about like whether they are doing or not doing their work and stuff like that. The one failure mode that most companies and why they perhaps hate remote work is when they kind of think of it as, oh, that's just a tool for companies to introduce and apply. Like it's not a tool, it's a culture. And culture you cannot just introduce like as another SaaS app or whatever. Like it needs to be, and it's super hard if the certain culture is ingrained. It's also super hard if like founders or whoever's running company don't really believe in it. But I still believe it's like a better way to working, but it's not for everyone.
Do you have any practical tips that people can take away? I don't know, that you have maybe once a month you have a meeting where all of you are just sitting down and just talking about something, or you know, like anything that we could implement, the ones that are working remotely.
I mean, there's a lot of nuance, but I think two biggest things that works for us is really constantly thinking about working asynchronously and kind of just designing processes. Like processes change all the time, but like you always have this principle. Okay, how can we make more of this asynchronous? Like, do we really need to have live meeting here? And like, where do we need to document more stuff so like it can happen asynchronously? And which maybe is more kind of obvious, but like you also do need to meet in person. And like we've been consistently, except for during COVID, meeting at least 2-3 times a year somewhere around the world.
Okay. And now talking about your, once again, entrepreneurial journey, you know, from CoGroup to Whimsical to being fully remote and successful. As a founder and as a person with so much experience under your belt right now, do you have any regrets as a founder, let's say, of Whimsical, besides maybe, you know, the fact that you guys had to scale down? Is there anything else that you wish you would have done differently right now? That's a tricky question, I know.
Well, I know the answer, which is not very glorious, that we didn't sell the company at the peak of market. But back then, it's kind of this weird thing where you felt super strongly that everybody at the company that we don't want to do that. And of course, in retrospect, like now, today, it feels, it would have been so much easier. But like, that's life. And I don't really regret it. It's just, it's very easy thing to think about and wonder like what would have happened if you made different decisions.
And on the flip side, what was kind of the highlight so far? I assume raising 30 million, ending in TechCrunch was not necessarily the highlight, though must have been nice. But you know, what would be something that you're extremely proud of?
And for me personally, it's always the kind of people I get to work with. Gives me energy, and I'm just like feel incredibly lucky I have that opportunity.
And this is also something that we were discussing about in terms of the team, how much you have to trust the team for everyone to be able to fulfill their role. So as a founder, I know it can be very overwhelming because you have to do so many things, you know, be in charge of people, you know, ideas and stuff. Some of the people feel like a startup is their baby, so they're overly protective. So what are the skills that the best entrepreneurs in your mind have? Like top 3 skills that if you have those, you're going to be kosher.
I don't think there is top 3 skills. It's
what kind of person does it take to be successful building a business?
I don't know. This is not so much about person, but the type of thinking that certain people have stronger tendencies than others, which is like having this ability to avoid dogma or dogmatism. I think most successful founders I know have that. That's like the biggest difference from them and other people that I've noticed. And I definitely know for myself, like I have gotten in trouble because like I had a really hard time working for other people because of this. But at the same time, it was super helpful when starting your own thing because kind of there is this mantra in startup world, like make something people want. Like I'm sure everybody has heard about it now. But that's one half of equation. The other half is making something different. If you just copy, I mean, it's easy to find things that people want, like people want iPhones, but if you just copy iPhone and with no difference, like nothing will happen. Nobody will buy it. Like why would they buy it? They have the original iPhone from Apple, which is a huge company. And that's where it's like if you think about it, like you can't follow any recipe. Like every recipe or like kind of this is the way you should be doing things, increase your probability that you will just be copying other people. So the more you can kind of stand aside and think from first principles without like, and dogma is all around us. Like we are submerged in it, like that's like our whole world, especially when it's so connected. So having this ability to puncture through it and kind of think for yourself based on first principles, that's like the biggest.
And what would be your advice to startup founders, entrepreneurs out there? Because the market right now, it's quite difficult, right, to operate in, to get VC funding, the competition, etc. What would be your one key takeaway that you wish everyone would know and just like take it very much to their heart once they leave this room?
Yeah, I mean, this was the one.
Yeah.
Avoid dogma.
Always
or
avoid that. Okay.
recognize it. I mean, second one, which we also touch, would be don't put raising venture capital as a prerequisite to building business. Like it's option, but it's much more important to figuring out something you can actually get some people to pay money for, and you don't need millions for that. Well, you do need some money. We still need to eat, but I mean, for each of my businesses, I had basically exactly 1 year of like runway personal when I would run out of money. And it was enough kind of 2 times, so it's not impossible, but it's not easy.
Okay, and just before we wrap up, what is in the store for Whimsical? What are the future plans? Perhaps there's something exciting that could share with us so people could keep their eyes open.
Yeah. So originally, and Whimsical was known for as a whiteboarding tool, but like we always had this bigger dream or vision to create a kind of hub for teams, a modern version of hub which is optimized for particularly for async remote work, and for teams to kind of collaborate on like all the core needs. And so we actually just launched yesterday our newest product for project management and messaging called basically just Whimsical Projects and Posts. So this is taking it very close to how we imagine like work should happen in modern teams, and like what's the product is really opinionated and designed around that. And I mean, of course, we've been running it, using it for everything at Whimsical for many months now. And yeah, I believe it's like it has this like opportunity to change how like a lot of teams approach work, but like we still have a lot of like work ahead of us. And I mean, now it's much more about, it will be about telling the story and like conveying why we believe. Like a lot of modern tools, and I mean, I'm sure plenty of people here still use something like Jira. Like why it's not just annoying, it's actually fundamentally hurting like your team's output and how efficient, effective it can be.
Yeah, so whoever's using Jira in the audience, right after the session, you just drop it, you get Whimsical, and your life is going to be much easier. And the very final question, I'm certain that people will have a lot of questions to you and may want to have this conversation, forward. How people can contact you, where it's best to chat with you, if you are open for that at all. LinkedIn, emails, grab you after the session.
Yeah, you can, well, probably not LinkedIn, but use Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. You can probably just search for me.
Perfect, on Blue Sky,
Kaspars
and that's with the name.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you guys for being here. We hope that you've learned something new. And remember, if you're using Jira, don't. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Julie.